Shadow Show, billed as All New Stories in celebration of Ray Bradbury, was compiled while Bradbury was still alive, and in fact he wrote a brief introduction to the book. The collection of short stories was edited by Sam Weller, a Bradbury biographer, and Mort Castle, a writer of horror and fantasy stories. HarperCollins sent me this book through Goodreads with the expectation that I would write a review. Since I give away copies of my own books in hopes of getting a review, I felt it was only fair to do it for them. First off, since I'm a hard science fiction reader and writer, Ray Bradbury is not near the top of my list of favorite authors, but he is on the list. I like a few of his stories and find his slightly off-kilter characters and situations sometimes amusing. Like Rod Serling did with his television plays, making stories appear to be science fiction or fantasy allows the author to confront the reader with an otherwise uncomfortable concept or truth without repelling him, and Bradbury always did it with great style. This is a collection of 26 short stories, all written in the Bradbury tradition by established writers of fantasy, horror, and science fiction. They vary in quality and in weirdness. Weirdness is a Bradbury mainstay. If it ain't weird, it ain't Bradbury. Quirky, tricky, ironic, or surprise endings are another Bradbury trait, and most of these have that as well. Ironic humor is another Bradbury method, and a couple of the stories in particular come to mind. Head Life by Margaret Atwood is one where the mean-spirited protagonist gets his comeuppance in a particularly well-deserved fashion. Heavy by Jay Bonansinga is a hilarious story about the weird relationship between a predatory Hollywood agent and a washed-up actor who is dying of cancer. That Bonansinga can find comedy in that situation is a tribute to his creative talent. Fat Man and Little Boy by Gary A. Bronbeck is classic Bradbury social commentary about a man under house arrest because he's too fat and therefore visually displeasing to the general public. Several of the stories I found impenetrable, but not wanting to poison the water for some of the less famous, I'll limit my negative comments to Harlan Ellison's entry, Weariness, which is at the very end of the collection. This may be a personal thing. Indeed, it almost certainly is, as this type of fiction is quite fashionable among those who imagine themselves to be intellectuals. But stories that deliberately try to obscure their meaning leave me flat. This one does just that. It is too cutesy in the way it attempts to confuse the reader. In addition, Ellison writes an afterword that is twice as long as the story itself, in which he informs us that he knew Ray Bradbury and that Ray Bradbury was a friend of his, in contrast to all those other people who claimed to know Bradbury but were really just passing acquaintances. Whether he was referring to the several other writers in this collection who told stories of meeting or corresponding with Bradbury is unclear. Of the collection as a whole, the good outweighs the bad by a fair amount. I don't read books that I don't like, and I certainly don't review them. The fact that I found most of the stories engrossing enough to finish tells me that they're pretty good. I am not a fan of this particular genre, but if you are a Ray Bradbury fan, this book is well worth your time.